MOBAs, or multiplayer online battle arenas such as League of Legends and Dota 2, have continued to both influence and dominate the gaming space for the past decade and more. But with the rise of MOBAs, there was a smaller subgenre to form due to a desire in the market. Battle Arena or Arena Brawlers were everything MOBAs were minus the tedium or focus on AI and gold generation, and more of a focus on just straight fighting. One of the first attempts in the genre was put forth by a little studio hailing from Sweden, Stunlock Studios, in 2011 titled Bloodline Champions, which unfortunately was short-lived. Stunlock Studios would attempt another more popular and well-received arena brawler in 2015, titled Battlerite. Battlerite was a unique combination of a top-down shooter and a fast-paced fighting game with a strong focus on competitive battles, choosing between a number of unique champions, melee and ranged DPS, and support characters. Although the multiplayer online title started as strong as back as chest hair, in July of 2019, Stunlock Studios announced that Battlerite would be shelved for them to focus on another title behind the scenes, effectively putting the game in the dreaded maintenance mode, where the remaining focus on the game is merely to keep the servers running with no new content in sight, until they decide to shutter the servers at a later date. With Stunlock Studios already moving on to another project, what went wrong with their second battle arena title, Battlerite? Pick a champion and try to land those skill shots, detectives. We'll need every bit of it for this doubleheader. And stay tuned near the end of the episode for the final deduction, where we compile what clues and evidence we have obtained on our journey to solve the mystery behind the death of a game, Battlerite. The story of Battlerite starts further back from its nucleus. A group of enthusiastic Swedish game development studios in Skövde, Sweden, formed unofficially in the summer of 2008 and officially in 2010. Bloodline Champions might get its own video someday, but long story short, the project was Stunlock Studios' first project, and with such came the same problems you expect. The arena brawler genre, being a spin-off from the MOBA genre to a certain extent, meant that it was still quite new. Bloodline Champions was an absolute pioneer for arena brawlers, but sometimes being the first isn't the best. It just means you got there, and maybe not necessarily in the best form. Sometimes it requires other titles to come after that and kind of pick up the pieces to make everything better in the end. Stunlock Studios would team up with a fellow Scandinavian developer in Funcom, a pioneer in the Nordic regions. BLC, as Bloodline Champions was often called, would go on to launch in January of 2011, exciting only a small competitive niche of an audience, failing to attract a larger and sustainable enough population for the online multiplayer title. Because of such, Bloodline Champions would be shut down in December of 2014. The game had a passionate community, critical acclaim, and grew rapidly, and we tried our best to sustain Bloodline Champions. But in the end, the small size of our studio caught up to us, and we had to stop development. Moving away from Bloodline Champions was, to this day, the hardest decision we have faced as a company. A lot of hearts were broken that day. Funcom, by the end of 2014, was looking to offload their 33% stake in Stunlock Studios, but Stunlock Studios, despite this, wasn't shutting down. They had desires on continuing their ambitions in video game development. After a short stint on a Dead Island-themed MOBA adaptation in Dead Island Epidemic in cooperation with Deep Silver, Stunlock Studios in the summer of 2015 was sent back to the drawing board when that project was shelved indefinitely. It's impossible to really do it justice what it was like sitting down in the summer of 2015 trying to ignite a new idea and direction for the studio. How do you move on from a cancelled project? How do you decide which direction to go when every avenue is open? Well, we decided on what we wanted. We wanted creative freedom and the independence to make our own decision on our games again. We wanted to keep working in the genre we tried to perfect in the 8 previous years. From there, we found our direction, and it led us to Battlerite. Battlerite Stunlock Studios would tease in February of 2016. The press release concerning the game was quite cryptic, but all signs, including the company's previous iteration of a game, was pointing towards another arena brawler title. Just 1 month later, in March of 2016, Stunlock Studios would officially announce Battlerite, a PvP arena brawler which promised hot and intense matches stripped from random elements to optimize the action. The 3D action title would feature different champions, each with unique abilities and weapons. There is a character for everyone, whether you are a veteran gamer or a rookie on a rampage. The release also detailed a unique observer mode where players can sit in seats and interact with the combatants. you do not always have to win the battle in order to win the hearts of the crowd. This spectator mode would go as far to have a VR spectator mode. I wonder how much time and resources that took to make though. But hey, it did make their gameplay trailer release in July of 2016 look that much better. Maybe that was the major reason for the VR offshoot? This gameplay trailer in fact attracted myself, a MOBA enthusiast, as I was eager like many to test the game come the fall of 2016. Battlerite would have a closed beta test in August of 2016, followed by another beta in September of 2016. And this is my first time playing the game. I was able to clock in 34 hours during this test schedule. Immediately I could sense the game's focus on a competitive arena PvP, and the skill cap within. I enjoyed the fact that support characters didn't just feel like heal bots, and actually required skill and coordination to use. Getting straight to the action of fighting PvP and skipping all the lane phase and item stuff was pretty awesome too, right? In order to remain independent as a company, and retain the creative freedom they wanted, Stunlock Studios would be self-publishing Battlerite through the means of early access on Steam. Early access would allow for players to purchase the game for $20 to support and playtest the game with founder packs that would grant access to all of the champions in the future. The game ultimately would be free to play, with skins and microtransactions typical for such a game. Early access can be controversial because it essentially is a customer paying for an unfinished product, with the hope that the developers with the injection of the funding will be able to finish the said game. This requires a good amount of trust, but Stunlock Studios was by all measures a legitimate company, one who had already launched a similar style product before, so trust in them concerning Battlerite, especially after seeing how similar in some respects the gameplay looked to Bloodline Champions, was rather high. This is the gamble you take as the consumer. Do you trust the self-publishing early access title, or prefer a complete AAA product, if those exist anymore? Having played Bloodline Champions and enjoyed the game, I was one of those who chose the former. $20 for all future champions released in Battlerite, where I knew at least I was going to have a few dozen hours of enjoyment, it seemed like $20 well spent. Battlerite's Steam Early Access launch would bring the indie title to an impressive 13,000 peak players and over 5,000 concurrent players according to the Steam charts. Just 1 month after Early Access launch, and Battlerite had found great success. 6,000 reviews put the game in the 95% very positive category. Battlerite was also boasting a whopping 200,000 players overall, and this was during the paid period of Early Access. Stunlock Studios creative director Martin Lovgren, in an interview with PC Gamer, seemed very positive concerning the game's reception on Steam. Battlerite's gameplay loop is simple. You choose a champion, team up with 1 or 2 friends, or solo queue and let matchmaking find your teammates. Once a team is created, you compete against other teams on a few different maps to be the final team remaining. With unique mechanics inspired from Battle Royale, such as the circle slowly closing in to promote more action and faster paced matches, and a focus on skill shots and combat made famous in MOBA titles, with orbs being placed throughout the map that either heal or give you the charge for your ultimate ability, having proper map control was also very key. On the surface, Battlerite was just a small-scale, fun PvP arena game. Battlerite, however, had the depth of an ocean in regards to the skill cap present, and it can be immediately felt when playing against better players. December 2016 would see the first introduction of ranked and ranked seasons in Battlerite, being the preseason, which according to the Steam charts would bring back and attract even more attention to the game, as it eclipsed 16,000 peak players and 3,800 concurrently. This update was very crucial for a competitive-focused battle arena title like Battlerite. It brought back the players who had just left in order to wait for the implementation of ranked, like myself. Patch 0.10.10, the first patch to come to Battlerite Early Access, would be in January of 2017. This patch itself was rather thin, focusing a brunt of its force against balancing combat. Population at this point had dropped 50% from the previous month, 4,681 peak players and only 1,888 at concurrent. For an early access title not even across the 1.0 mark yet, Battlerite seemingly had more time to improve their position here with subsequent updates and of course an official launch. March 2017, patch 0.11.2 was another balance-focused patch, and I don't mean to say that they shouldn't be doing balance patches, but more so that the most common complaint in the comments on these patches on Steam were that people were annoyed that no additional modes were being added, no new content, and little in the way of broadening the scale of Battlerite as a whole, more specifically into who they were trying to approach. The competitive PvP crowd was the obvious target with Battlerite, with the skill gap between fighting bots and players being quite steep. For a game trying to appeal to a competitive audience, Battlerite was still lacking many pivotal competitive features, such as a tournament system, match history information, and ultimately, a proven ecosystem. Battlerite would host a free trial week in April of 2017, which explains its increase in population jumping up 100% to 10,300 peak players and 2,220 concurrent players. While population would dip all the way to October of 2017, November 2017 would prove to be the most pivotal moment for Battlerite population-wise. Launching officially on November 8th, 2017, Battlerite would go free to play. This would introduce a slew of new players, bringing the Battlerite peak numbers on Steam to an all-time record high of 44,850 and 16,218 concurrently. Stunlock Studios, now growing to be a reported 45 employees, were attempting to scale up in order to deal with this new demand for Battlerite. Population, however, dropped down 90% or more. At this point, it becomes apparent that Battlerite, like many other early access titles, was suffering from its growing pains. With a growing audience came growing expectations, and Battlerite was only just recently launched, and unfortunately for some, wasn't pumping out enough content to keep them interested. Stunlock Studios had to scale up in order to deal with this demand, but when said demand drops back down, as it inevitably does, and the company finds itself in a precarious position. January 2018 was patch 1.3, which introduced Xander, a new champion, followed by patch 1.4 in March of 2018, which was the official beginning of the ranked season in Battlerite. Patch 1.4 was a big patch for the competitive crowd because it added ranked rewards, a pre-game lobby, a ranked leaderboards. This patch very clearly was what the struggling newly launched Battle Arena Battlerite needed. Increased population by 39% with peak players at 17,000 and concurrent players up to a high of 6,700 players. When there aren't enough players playing ranked, and the players who are playing ranked are already a smaller percentage of the players who just play the normal, basic, quick match, there aren't enough players overall to accurately match and fairly match these players who are trying to play ranked. This influx in players for Battlerite in March of 2017 was much needed because of this. Stunlock Studios would secure a strategic relationship with Twitch and Nexon concerning the launch of a new pro league. The league would have a $80,000 prize pool, broadcast on Twitch, and Nexon would produce the league in Korea. With Nexon handling the Korean league, Stunlock and Twitch would handle the other 3 regions, Europe and North America, and South America, which would hold qualifiers to ultimately compete for the $80,000 prize pool. While Stunlock Studios was preparing for esports, their game's population of April 2018 dipped 27% down to a 10,000 player peak and 4,800 concurrent. Would this focus on esports be the decision that either attracts new players or returning vets? Or would this be yet another key decision to drive away the potential of attracting in a larger audience in favor of a smaller one that at this point was starting to lose interest? Perhaps the announcement of esports and the success of Battlerite's Pro League could reinvigorate the already faltering multiplayer online title. May 2018 would be the launch of patch 1.6. Which would begin the Season 2 of Ranked for Battlerite. Population would drop yet again, this time down to 7,000 players peak and 3,700 concurrent. Stunlock would continue on to host its Battlerite Pro League Global Finals in June of 2018 with a total prize pool of 28,000. The tournament would go on with Space Station Gaming taking first place at 10,000, with Impact trailing at second for 6,000. With Battlerite Pro League numbers at a peak of 5,436 and an average viewership of 3,261, Battlerite's Pro League numbers were humble at best, and this is expected of an unproven indie competitive online title in Battlerite. These numbers clearly didn't warrant the amount of money expended, which we know at least to be over $80,000. An online multiplayer title trying to be esports ready before the game is a proven commodity is not a stranger to the death of a game series. This is no different here. Battlerite only had launched just less than a year ago. Stunlock Studios being self-funded meant they couldn't waste resources on maybes. They needed to make the right moves if they were going to save Battlerite, let alone save their company from going under. An esports scene can't really exist with just one big off tournament, and it certainly doesn't do well when developers try and force the issue, versus encouraging the community to create their own events. And certainly an esports scene can't exist when the prize pool doesn't even break minimum wage when you calculate the amount of money and time that players put into going pro. Battlerite Esports didn't move the needle, and it didn't do much to help stabilize the loss of population. In July of 2018, population was already down to a very low 3,379 peak players and nearly 2,000 concurrent. Desperate measures were going to be needed to keep Battlerite alive going forward into the fall of 2018. Stunlock Studios elected to pull a wild card out that just about surprised everyone. Cashing in on the Battle Royale craze pioneered by games like Fortnite, PUBG, and so on, Stunlock Studios was attempting their own Battle Royale. The catch was it would be a fully standalone game from their other Battlerite title. Needless to say, the community was torn down the middle, with some fans angry that Stunlock Studios would launch a separate BR game versus just a mode, and the other crowd was just eager to play more Battlerite content, perhaps sensing the impending doom if the BR didn't do well. The reasoning for the split of the games was explained by marketing director at Stunlock Studios, Johan Eels. Early on in Battlerite Royale's development, we noticed how difficult it was to align the Battle Royale theme and still ensuring the genre and gameplay to work together. Battlerite Royale has become a significantly different experience, and we are now separating the games so that each of them can flourish in their own right. Whether this was true or Stunlock Studios was just running out of money and needed more funding, only time would tell. Battlerite Royale, you explored a map 30 times larger than the standard map, looking for a variety of items and consumables. You fight other players for their loot to ultimately be the last one surviving on the island. The combat otherwise would be the same. Battlerite Royale would enter early access for $20 September 2018. For those who had purchased Battlerite already, you got a 50% discount code, which meant if you purchased a champion pack originally, you still had to repurchase the champions in Battlerite Royale. This was a crucial reason people cited on Steam reviews for not being pleased with the introduction of the Battlerite Royale. Not only did players not ask for the BR, they certainly didn't want to have to purchase it again in order to play the game. Battlerite Arena in October of 2018 was introducing its 4th season, the Curse of the Night patch. Season 4, which introduced new rewards, and a new ranked season, Curse of the Night, which introduced the Halloween event, and some quests that rewarded you. Although this patch accompanying a season introduction was the lightest yet, the population still managed to slightly rebound up to a 5,333 peak and 2,618 concurrent players, a 54% increase. With the introduction of Battlerite Royale, we now have two different charts here to reference. October 2018, we see Battlerite Royale enter its paid early access, peaking at 8,218 players and 3,089 players concurrently. But considering these were paid customers, this was much needed cash for Stunlock Studios. Battlerite Royale would launch February 19th, 2019, with the population peaking at 2,975 and 524 average concurrent players. These numbers were lower than their previous paid early access. Battlerite Arena's population, on the other hand, in February 2019, wasn't doing any better at 2,778 players peak and 1,173 concurrent players. The Savior patch was supposed to be the patch titled The Big Patch, set to hit February 13th, 2019. The biggest changes to come with the patch were a boost to everyone's movement speed across the board. The armory system was also introduced, which was the more traditional item shop from other MOBAs. The big patch also added the Battle Pass system, made famous in Fortnite, which was a free and paid tier progression system that rewarded daily play and quest completions for cosmetic rewards. Stunlock Studios was certainly going to need more money in order to keep the ship running, and they can't operate a game for free. But continuing to monetize during an ever-bleeding population wasn't the best for optics. The big patch would bridge the gap between Battlerite Arena and Battlerite Royale in terms of account-wide progression. But was anyone even paying attention to either of these games anymore? As the summer rolled around, we saw Battlerite Arena's population drop to an all-time low of 1,079 players peak and 534 players concurrently. Battlerite Royale was significantly doing worse at 344 peak players and only 115 concurrent. The population for Battlerite Royale dropped quite significantly. Perhaps the game just simply wasn't enough in someone's eyes to not be perceived as a gimmick. No change in sight was going to do anything to breathe back life into either game's struggling population at this point. And as history has taught us, when competitive matchmaking-based multiplayer titles struggle on population, finding those fairly balanced matches is a pipe dream. This creates a vicious cycle where more and more population is hemorrhaged until there just isn't anymore. Unfortunately, this vicious cycle had already taken hold of both titles, and Stunlock Studios was well aware of such. If they wanted their company to survive, they were going to need to look for outside funding, pivot to another title, or potentially both. Stunlock Studios on the fateful day of July 4th, 2019 would announce that, with the state of the current player base, we're no longer in a position where working on Battlerite and Battlerite Royale are sustainable as main projects for the studio. We've seen declining player numbers and player investment for a while now, and diminishing returns on all of our latest gameplay changes and marketing campaigns. While players are trying out Battlerite and Battlerite Royale for a while, retaining them has always been our biggest challenge. On our end, we'll keep looking at how to serve the games and what's possible for them while we move on to our next project. We'll be taking everything we've learned from Battlerite, what worked, what didn't work, and what we could have done better, and more, to the next game and growing from it all. You'll hear from us again in the future on the future development plans for Battlerite and when our next project is ready. You can't blame Stunlock Studios at that point for moving on and cutting their losses. Battlerite and its gamble of a stepchild Battlerite BR weren't proving to be successful enough to keep the growing company afloat. Stunlock Studios would be putting both titles on the shelf for the seemingly indefinite future. Battlerite would have its final patch, 2.3, in October of 2019. Tencent quietly just a month later in November would acquire 31% of Stunlock Studios' shares. Tencent very likely could be taking advantage of Stunlock's down period and potentially looking to help them concerning their next title. Could it be a fourth arena, brawler, or battle arena title for Stunlock Studios? With the current population on a weird minor upswing, probably due to all this weird COVID madness, you can still currently play Battlerite Arena. Though if you're in a less populated region, good luck getting any matches, and ranked is kind of a crapshoot unfortunately. The Battlerite BR barely has enough population remaining to warrant an install on the other hand. 312 peak players in March 2020 isn't going to be enough to get matches worldwide at your time zone. Though both Battlerites certainly aren't getting any more love from Stunlock Studios in the foreseeable future, their absolute shutdown dates are still unknown. Now before we gather all the clues and evidence for our big final deduction, there's 2 points in particular I think worth making regarding Battlerite. First, we have to take a look at the game's retention rates, which, as the developers admitted themselves, was one of their biggest issues. Compared to the overall peak population, retention rates for the multiplayer title Battlerite seemed poor in comparison. There's a few different ideas as to why. I and others have postulated it has to do with the match lengths in Battlerite. Battlerite match lengths vary anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. This is pretty short comparatively to other competitive online titles such as CSGO, StarCraft 2, Dota 2, and Overwatch. This means that in the span of 2 hours you could potentially play 12 games. This in theory might sound awesome, but in practice can quickly lead to burnout if the game isn't chopped full enough of enough content to keep people interested, or has enough complexity in gameplay and variety to keep it going without. This explains why when I played Battlerite in beta, I enjoyed my time, but I rarely had the desire to have a longer gaming session than just maybe an hour or two. And when the game eventually launched, I had little inspiration to rejoin the experience. Some people just don't mind less novel experiences, sure, see chess for example, but Counter-Strike remains fun on Dust 2 for the 1000th time because of a combination of a few things, such as the game's design, the map's design, weapon economy, team player and variety, and the strategies implemented. The difficult thing with Battlerite compared to CSGO is even though you can get more time playing Battlerite in the game, it isn't designed to be casual in the first place, which can seem like a bit of a contradiction. Extremely competitive sports, such as combat sports, require serious intensity so they don't get played or practiced for long periods of time. If your game can't get played for long periods of time, it's unlikely it's going to have a long enough retention to introduce enough players to potentially keep the game alive. Battlerite had this incredible skill cap, but a game design that encouraged players to take breaks versus going on those binge sessions, and that's a key sign in nearly all of the current most popular online titles. While some of them, like CSGO for example, can be very competitive, they can also be a game for players that maybe are just silver players or maybe double AKs to still have fun playing deathmatch or more casual types of games. We also have to accept that second, there's clear issues with this style of game at this point, and we need to explore the options into fixing such. Stunlock Studios effectively has developed 4 different arena brawler titles of some sort. Some companies only get lucky with one shot, but Stunlock Studios has had enough to launch 4 different games, or almost launch 4 different games, and has had enough talent to sell hundreds of thousands of copies of a game and get millions of people interested. This means they're not lacking talent, but a few key decisions missed here and there, and a flawed game design from the ground up could very well be the reason this type of game just keeps failing to catch flight. I won't sit here and say that the arena brawler genre is, well, not a genre and just a fad. I just think that the genre is still quite new and requires the right kind of design to stand the test of time. Well, it's either the genre and the games produced and such need work, or Stunlock Studios is the common denominator here, and I'm just more willing to believe the former based on what I have played from Stunlock Studios and experienced from them. As the darkness starts to fade and the truth becomes clear, we turn to the catchy detective music for a final deduction concerning the largest contributing factors for the death of a game, Battlerite. Launching in early access meant early exposure. This resulted in a gaping hole in Battlerite that Stunlock Studios raced to fill, but never could quite prevail. Battlerite ultimately failed to appeal to its core audience, let alone the more popular general audience that it also failed to appeal to. Trying to make the game an esport before it even had a healthy competitive community, at this point, should just be recognized with the game's death. Launching a BR standalone game split the population and diverted resources better spent on Battlerite. Burnout was an evident problem as Battlerite's retention rates were nearly always poor. Stunlock Studios isn't short of talent, or the ability to attract an audience. Whether they are able to go back to the drawing board on a few things in the arena brawler or brawler arena genre, or attempt a different genre altogether, I for one will be there to test and experience what they have to offer. With Battlerite servers still being live and another Stunlock project on the horizon, being a arena brawler fan won't just be dozens of us anymore. Thanks for watching, guys.